Hello and welcome to today's Bitrix24 webinar, Better Business Processes. Thank you for joining today. Just to introduce ourselves, so my name is Sam Connor, a sales engineer here at Bitrix24 Gold Partners Interface. We're based in the UK, in the US and Hong Kong, and we offer a full range of services starting off with pre-sale support. So what we can do is go through your requirements and really evaluate if Bitrix24 would be a good fit for your business. If it is, we can then provide a full implementation service, help you to set up the system to your specific requirements. For a self-hosted edition, we offer our own hosting solutions, and we can provide you with training and ongoing dedicated support. Okay, so if you're new to Bitrix24 and you've joined the webinar today to get some more information about the solution, Bitrix24 is really a collaboration suite of in excess of 35 plus tools to help you in managing your business. There are over 9 million customers now that use Bitrix24, and the system is available in two different editions. We have the cloud and the self-hosted edition. And prices start from $19 per month for a commercial cloud license, and a self-hosted system, the starting pack for 12 users is $1,490. Okay, so today's webinar, Better Business Processes. So we're going to look at how we can manage processes that we want to implement directly inside Bitrix24. First of all, it's really important to understand what a business process is. So a business process is a flow of information defined by either a route or a scheme. So the business process module within Bitrix24 allows organizations to execute and monitor workflows on objects such as documents, it could be CRM items, such as leads and deals, and also HR type of requests, such as leave requests or expenses. So there's a real variety of requests that you can run inside Bitrix24. And there are really, we would say, three different types of business processes that you can run within Bitrix24. So first of all, there we have sequential. And a sequential business process performs a series of consecutive actions on an item from a starting point to an end point. We also have a state-driven process, and this doesn't have a start and an end point, but what it does have is a series of statuses. And at each status, it triggers a specific process based on that status. Then we also have CRM automation and robotic process automation. So where we can run automatic processes at set stages, for example, inside leads and deals. So let's just have a quick look at some of those in more detail. Okay, so first of all, let's just have a look at a sequential business process. So we mentioned how a sequential business process performs a series of consecutive actions on an item from a predefined starting point onto an end point. So you can see here in this sequential business process, this is a leave request process. So we've got a starting point where a user is requesting leave, and then we go through a chain of actions until we get to a predefined end point. So that's what a sequential business process looks like. Then we also have a state-driven process that we mentioned. So the key difference here is there is no start or end point. You have different statuses. So for example, here we have draft, publishing, approval. And on each status, we have different child processes that will be run. So a very common area you'll see a state-driven process is on documents. So you may have different statuses for the documents, and based on that status, we then run different types of actions. And then the third type is the CRM automation / robotic process automation. So this is where we can create our own stages. and based on those different stages that we have, we can then create our own automation rules inside the system. So for example, in this robotic process automation, this is an expenses process. So what we do here is as soon as the expense is submitted, we're going to notify that user's supervisor that a new expense has been added into the system. And then once it gets moved here into the supervisor approval stage, we're going to have that be evaluated by the supervisor. And once they have added their details and either approved or declined that expense, it's going to automatically move into the appropriate stage here of either authorized or declined. And within those stages here, we're going to notify the submitter of the status of their expense. So you can see here the different types of automations we can run directly in the system. Okay, so that's a look there at the different types of automations we can run in Bitrix24. Okay, so moving on now, we're going to look at really where we can run those different types of business processes. So we'll have a look there then at how we can run different processes. And there are lots of different areas within Bitrix24 that processes can be run. You may be surprised, it's not just simply within the CRM area, for example. So first of all, we can run them in the HR and admin section. So within your, for example, a leave request or an expense request, that can be done directly on the activity screen page. We've got the CRM system. So on most modules within the CRM, such as in leads, in deals, contacts, and companies, you can run business processes. We can run processes on documents, and as we've mentioned, state-driven processes are very common in documents. If you use lists, especially in projects, you can run processes off lists, also on tasks, and within the online store, we can also run processes through automation on orders. Okay, so let's just have a look then at some of those locations in Bitrix24. Okay, so first of all, we've mentioned how we can do them directly in the activity area. So for example, in the workflow section here, I might want to request some, say, annual leave. So this then opens up the request leave form where we can start submitting our details to submit our holiday leave in the system. So it's one area, for example, directly on the home page. If we go into the CRM system, you can also run a workflow of any entity in here. So for example, if we go into the company database, we may go into, let's go into a company. And you can see in the top right hand corner here, this is our workflow section. So we can run a workflow manually off our list of workflows here. But when you create a workflow, which we'll have a look at later, we can also have a workflow triggered automatically based on a certain, could be a field, or if a status of a lead or deal is actioned, we can run a workflow automatically. So it's looking at some of those workflows in the CRM system. Let's just go into the drive area. If we go into the company drive, we can also turn on processes inside the drive area. So just to point out in here, if you go into the settings section, what you can do is if we go into configure business processes, just make sure you've got the button ticked here to activate business processes. And then from there, you can run processes directly on any documents that you store in the system. So it could be, for example, let's have a two-stage approval. So what we're going to do here is going to have our two users here that we're selecting to vote to approve this document before other users are able to access that document in the system. Okay, so let's look at on the drive module. We mentioned in projects, there's a few different areas in projects we can run processes. So first of all, for example, inside lists. Now lists are where you can store real tables of information associated to a project. So for example, here we have an expenses list. Now what we can do in here is we can set up our own workflows. So for example, here we might have an approval process. So once an expense has been added, we can then have this go to the project manager to either approve or to reject. And if I just show you one other area, back in the CRM system, we've also got automation. So on leads and on deals, you can run processes directly as the lead progresses through certain stages. So for example, as soon as we get to the first call stage here, we're going to send out a thank you email to that lead. And what you can also do, you can set up triggers. And a trigger will automatically update the stage of that lead or deal for you based on a trigger being actioned. So for example, quite a common type of trigger that you may run, for example, is if a link is clicked on an email. So if the lead clicks on that link, it shows they're interested. So we could then automatically move them to, say, the follow-up call stage. So it will automatically move them, say, from new lead to the follow-up call step. Okay, so that's a look there at some of the different areas where we can run business processes. Let's just see if we've got any questions at all that we can run through for you today. Okay, if you do have any questions, please do add them into the chat box and we'll run through those throughout the webinar today. Okay, so is Bitrix supplied with pre-built business processes? So yes, it is. You do get a selection of processes that come with the system, such as the leave approval workflow. And these can be customized as well. So we've got a few processes in here that you'll get, such as leave approval, business trips, general requests. So you do get several processes that come out of the box with the Bitrix24 system. Okay, if there are any other questions, please do add them into the chat box and we'll run through those for you later on throughout the webinar. Okay, so moving on now, let's have a look at how actually we can create our own business processes in the Bitrix24 system. So Bitrix comes included with a very advanced visual editor tool for building business processes. So you don't need to be an expert in coding to be able to create your own processes in Bitrix24. It uses very simple drag and drop technology, and it includes over 40 pre-built action blocks that you can simply add onto your process. So what we're going to look at now is how we can create a process using the Business Process Designer tool. And we're going to be looking at the different stages within a deal. And based on those stages, we're going to be then actioning certain actions in the system. So to be able to create a new process inside the CRM, in particular in deals, let's go into the CRM system. And then we're going to head over to settings. And within settings, we go to automation and business processes. And this then shows you your different entities in the system. And we're going to add a new process into deals. That's where we've said we're going to run this process. So I'm going to go into the deal section here and add a new template. Okay, so first of all, you can add a description and a name for your business process. Let's call this deal stage change, because that's what we're going to be looking at. In this process, it's going to be constantly looking at what stage the deal is at. And based on that stage, we're then going to run certain actions. And what you can do with any business process you create is you can choose when this is run. So it may be when the deal is added, or when any change is made in the deal, or we could untick both options. And what will happen is it will only run manually. So in that top right-hand corner where we have our deals, we could have this run manually as and when we want to run the process. Okay, so this now opens up the business process editor tool. So we mentioned about a business process, a sequential business process. You're going to have a start and an end point. So we're going to flow this process through certain actions until we get to a predefined endpoint. So first of all, we want to add a condition, because what we need the process to do is to be looking at what stage the deal is at. And we're going to look at 3 different stages here. So I've opened up and added one more branch. And at each of these branches, then we're going to create our different stage rules. Okay, so the first rule, let's just say this is when the quote is being created. And this is now where we start to look to make sure we are matching to a certain stage. So I'll select stage in here. And let's say we're going to look into our UK pipeline. And let's just say at this stage, we're sending the quote. So it's been created and we're going to send out the quote. So that's the stage we're at there. So we'll just add these different processes into the workflow. And then the final one, so we've got quote created, quote with client, let's say quote is approved. So it's really simple to start to build out your different processes in the system. If you need any help and assistance, we can provide training, so we can train you to help you in building your processes. Or if you have certain processes you want our team to implement, we can implement any processes for you in the system. Okay, so here what we're doing is we're looking to see what stage the deal is at. And then based on those different stages here, we can then run different actions that we want to have run based on that stage in the deal. Okay, so let's say, for example, when the quote has been created, we're going to wait 7 days. And if we've not heard back, if the deal's still then at that stage, let's then schedule a phone call with them. So when the quote is with the client, once it's been processed and with them, let's run a credit check just to check their information before it goes to approval. Okay, so we can start to really be proactive here in engaging, checking to make sure they would be available if they did approve the quote, that they're going to be able to have credit available. And then once the quote's been approved, let's notify the sales manager, and also let's send the customer an email thanking them for approving the quote and their order. So you can see here these different stages here. We're running completely separate actions based on what stage that deal is at. And within each of these different features, for example, you can completely customize the information. So here we've got that templated email. You can completely customize what information is being supplied in those different action blocks. So you can go into here and customize exactly what information is being displayed. This is a really useful feature to use because it just helps you to streamline your processes. So when a quote's approved, for example, rather than having to go in and check yourself, you can automatically be notified. We could automatically have that communication with the customer. So it's a really nice way to make your processes not just streamlined, but also become more efficient in how you're communicating with your customers. Okay, so that's a look there at how we can create a business process. What you can also do inside leads and in deals, so let's just go out of the business process, is you can also set up your own automation rules. So I mentioned there how on a business process we could just run that manually as and when we like. What we can also do inside leads and deals is we can run automations. And automations is a way of automatically either communicating with your customers or leads based on certain stages. And it also gives you the option to automatically update the stage of a lead or deal based on a certain action being triggered. So for example, if we just go into our lead section here, let's go into one of our leads. What we have inside here is a set of automations that will run as this lead goes through different stages of the lead process. So we can see here the lead is currently at the new lead stage. But when that lead gets moved to the first call stage, an email is automatically going to be sent out. And we're also going to send out an SMS message to them as well. Now, what we might also want to do is maybe want to schedule some activity for the responsible person. So let's say, for example, we create a call that gets scheduled with that contact. So we're going to say call the lead and discuss the requirements and add all details into the lead page. And we're going to say we're going to start this tomorrow. So we're going to run that as a deadline that's going to run tomorrow once that lead has hit that particular stage. So let's save that in the system. Okay, so we're in the new lead stage, and now we're going to move up to the first call stage in the system. And what that's now done is, so it's got that task and it's got the outbound call. So that call has now been added into here and it's been scheduled for tomorrow. And we've also got the email communication and the SMS message being sent out. So all of that activity has been automated based on the lead stage being updated in the system. Now, it could be based on, for example, that email getting sent out. What you could do is you could have a link in this email. Now, if that lead clicks on that link, we could then automatically have that lead updated maybe to the looking good stage, for example, because they've been proactive and they're looking to engage with us. So automations are a really useful way to really help you understand exactly where your leads are at in the sales process. We can use those triggers to automatically update them and also keep in contact with them through different automation rules. Okay, so let's look there at how we can create processes using the process editor tool and automation rules. Now let's move on to look at how we can actually trigger business processes. So when we were creating that business process earlier on, at the beginning, we had to select how that process runs, either when added automatically or just manually creating that process. So there are different ways a process can be triggered. So first of all, a process can be triggered when an item is created or updated. So for example, if you created a brand new deal, that could trigger a business process to run in the background. You can also manually trigger a process. So just like at the start where we saw how we could create a leave approval form, that is manually adding that process into the system because we're selecting as and when we want that process to run. Now, it's not just within the HR features, but also within the CRM system. When we're in the company page, you could go to the top right-hand corner and select from the selection of workflows and run that process. And it's also the same on documents. We could also have maybe external triggers. So that could be such as a webhook, as you can see there, or with the self-hosted edition, we can say set external rules using the API. So it could be, for example, when an email comes in to a support at email address, what we could then do is automatically trigger the creation of a help desk ticket in the system. So the self-hosted edition does have some additional features that you could utilize. So let's just have a quick look at how you can create those. So if I go into the control panel, so this is a self-hosted edition. And if we go into our services section, we have a mail area. And within here, we can set up roles. So for example, what we could do, a very popular role you can set up is if you have a support at email address where clients, for example, could submit support tickets. When those users send an email to that support address, we could then automatically trigger the creation of a help desk ticket in the help desk module. So an email comes in, and what we could then do is automatically trigger a new ticket to be created in the help desk module. So that's another type of trigger we could create. That's only available using the self-hosted edition. Okay, so that's another look there at how you could automatically trigger actions from external users as well. And just to note, with the self-hosted, just in regards to that self-hosted solution, partners are actually able to provide hosting options. So if you're concerned that we're talking here about a self-hosted system, you don't have to host this in a local server. It's essentially a private cloud instance. So if you are looking for hosting solutions, here at Interface, we do offer our own hosting services. So we can look into helping you if you are interested in a self-hosted system. Okay, so let's actually have a look now at several live examples of how we can run processes inside Bitrix24. Okay, so first of all, let's have a look at how we can create a brand new project in the system. So as you may well know, if you're used to Bitrix24, we are able to create projects inside the system where we bring groups of people together to work on a project. Now you can manually create projects in the system, but what you could also do is you could actually create a process to automatically bring groups of people together based on a type of project. So for example, it could be we've added a new business, so we've created a new sale from the CRM system, and we've just got a new business in the system. So what we could then do based on that is we could then create a brand new project. So we're going to bring a group of people together who are going to be working on this new sale that we have just secured. So this has now opened up a project form that I'm going to complete. So let's call this TechCo New Business Project. I'm going to select the manager now that is going to be responsible for managing this project. And I'm also going to select the project type. So this is really important because based on the type that we select here, that's then going to decide what set of tasks are going to be added into this project. So that could be really useful if you have different types of projects that you run with different selections of tasks. You can maybe create that inside here and then select the appropriate one you want to use. So we're going to select project A. That's going to be the project type we're going to run. And the form that you can see here, it is completely customizable in terms of what information you want to be added. So if you're concerned there may be additional features you want to have added, maybe a document needs to be uploaded in here, for example, we can add different fields into this form. Okay, so I'm going to start that process. It's been initiated in the system, and I'm going to go into my workflow section. So we can see here now that a new project has been assigned to me, and I've actually now got to add some additional information into the system. Okay, so I'm just going to go into start that process. So what we need to add is a completion date. So first of all, before the project is created, as we saw there, we need to actually add an estimated completion date. And then the tasks are going to work based on that particular deadline. So let's say that's the completion date we're going to add, and I'm going to accept that information in the platform. Okay, so just received some notifications. So that new project group has been connected. And so let's go into our work group area, and we can see now TechCo new business project has been created. And it's brought a selection of users, so it's brought a group of people who, based on that project type, these are the experts who need to be incorporated into this particular project. And if we go into the task area, we can see here a selection of tasks have now also been created. Based on that project type we selected, these are the sets of tasks that now need to be completed based on that particular project group being selected. So it's a really useful way to streamline the creation of projects, bring in the correct group of people based on maybe a type of project into the system. And what we can do as well, let's just have a look in the actual workflow designer to show you what this looks like. Okay, so this is where we can see all of our different projects. So this is really the back end of Bitrix24, where we were creating our business processes earlier on. This is a ready-made process showing that project that we were creating in the front end. So first of all, we were requested to add information. So all of the details about the project were added. And then in here, we were notified. So all of the members of the team were notified about the project. We added some information. And then based on that project type that we selected, it's then created a set of tasks based on what project type we added through that form. So you can see here different conditions. Now, this doesn't have to be set in stone. So again, just to show Bitrix's flexibility, all of those action blocks are still available. You can add new conditions into here. You might want to add different tasks. It's completely customizable to your specific process. So let's look at how we can create a project. Now let's move on to look at how we can manage absence requests using Bitrix24. So if I go into the HR area, so I'm going to go into the workflow section, I'm going to request some annual leave. And this has now opened up our request leave form. So we can see here the different types of information we need to input to request our leave. Now, once again, the fields that you see in this form are completely customizable. So there are businesses that will have very specific details that need to be added when a leave form is requested. It's completely customizable. Okay. So first of all, we're going to add our date for the leave. So let's submit this in for September. So I'm going to select the days there and add my holiday as my reason, and it's annual leave. So I've filled in that form now, and what will happen is it's going to, based on the process we've created, it's going to go to our manager based on what we have in the company structure to either approve or reject this in the system. Okay, so if I go in here as my manager, I can see that I've received a notification about Max's request, and I can then go into here and I can now go through and either approve or reject that particular leave request in the system. So I'm actually going to approve this, and we're going to have that authorized. Okay, so that's now been authorized in the system. So we can see now that's been approved. And if we go to our time and reporting section, now you do need at least a professional cloud license to be able to access this feature, but all of those different requests that are submitted, if they are authorized, they will then be added into the absence chart. So we can see here that Max Smith holiday leave that Max submitted, it was approved by their supervisor. It's now been added into the absence chart. Now, with the self-hosted edition, a feature that we have built here at Interface is an absence management tool. So if you wanted to maybe add a title or maybe an entitlement for each user, we have built a custom feature available for the self-hosted edition, so you can give each user a specific leave entitlement. So for example, in here, Max Smith has 21 days annual leave. They currently have 11 days booked, 3 days are pending, still waiting for approval, and they can then see what their remaining leave entitlement is. So once their entitlement hits 0, any new leave requests will automatically be rejected in the system. And if at the end of the holiday year, if there is annual leave remaining, that can actually be moved over into next year's leave entitlement. So we can run toil in the system. So if you are on a self-hosted system and something like this where you can add entitlement, and also you're able to actually see your annual leave bookings directly in your profile page, then please do get in touch with our team here at Interface and we can provide you with a demonstration and more details about our custom absence management tool. Now, just before we move on to look at one more process, I just want to show you again what that leave approval looks like from the Business Process Editor tool. Okay, so here is that leave approval process. So first of all, we were asked to add all of our information in that request leave form. So once that was added and submitted, it's then gone to our supervisor, who either needs to approve or reject the leave request. And then we're checking the status. So we're going to check in now if it is approved or rejected. It was approved, so that goes down this left-hand channel, and we're going to be notified, and the absence is then going to be added into the absence chart. Whereas if the status was rejected, none of that adding to the chart would have taken place. The process would have gone down the right-hand side here and notify requester that the leave has been denied. Okay, and another process that has become quite popular, especially with people being remote, is the ability to use triggers inside the CRM system. One way you can run triggers is using web forms, for example. So what you could do in your system is you could create a brand new web form using the Bitrix24 web generator tool. And based on that, what you could then do is have that information added into the CRM, and it could create a trigger. So for example, you could embed a website form onto your website, such as an inquiry form. And when that information is submitted, we could then trigger the creation of a brand new entity in the system. So I'm just going to add some information into this particular form, and we're going to submit this form in the system. Okay, and then if we go into our CRM system, we can see now 11 seconds ago, that trigger process has automatically created a brand new lead in the system. So we can see it's pulled in their information, and then using the automation tools, it's automatically now scheduled an outbound call. So not only are we generating new entities directly in the system, we're actioning new tasks for our internal team. Okay, so let's just have a look at some of the differences between the cloud and the self-hosted. So most of the tools that we've looked at today are available in both the cloud and the self-hosted solutions. They both include the editor tool and processes for documents, HR, and CRM items. Just need to be careful with looking at the cloud system. So some of the areas such as the absence charts, when you're running leave approvals, you do need the professional cloud license to have access to that feature. I think really the main difference and the benefit of a self-hosted is the option to run processes on external features. So such as, for example, where we could trigger the creation of a help desk ticket using an email address. And we can also customize maybe different processes using web forms or using the API to maybe trigger a process with an external system. Okay, so in summary today, business processes can be run on lots of different features in Bitrix24, for example, such as documents, entities within the CRM, HR processes, and on lists. Creating your own processes, it's really simple. So it's simple drag and drop workflow technology to create your processes. And business processes, they can be triggered manually, automatically, or if you're using a self-hosted system, that could be done via an email or API call. Okay, so coming soon, here are a selection of future webinars. So next week, we're going to be looking at self-hosted advantages. So if you are interested in the self-hosted system, please do join our webinar next week. We're here Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, every Tuesday, with a new webinar for you. Thank you for your time today. I hope you found the Better Business Processes webinar useful. If you do have any questions until next week, please do email sales@interface.com, and we'll be happy to set up a meeting with you. But thanks for your time today. Bye for now.